Emily had always been the type of person who saw beyond appearances. On her way home from college one evening, exhausted from a long day of lectures and part-time work, she noticed a young man sitting quietly against a brick wall on the corner of Maple Street. His clothes were torn and dusty, and his face was gaunt from hunger, but his eyes held a calm strength that immediately caught her attention. Something about him felt different, not like the usual people she passed every day. Without thinking twice, she reached into her bag, pulled out the only cash she had left, just a few dollars meant for groceries, and gently handed it to him. "Get something warm to eat," she said softly. The young man looked up at her in disbelief, his eyes wide with gratitude as he murmured a quiet, "Thank you." When Emily got home to the tiny apartment she shared with her roommate Brittany, she tried not to think about how that money was supposed to go toward their rent. But as soon as Brittany noticed her empty wallet, the confrontation began. "Seriously, Emily, you gave our rent money to a guy on the street," Brittany snapped, crossing her arms. "We're barely keeping the lights on, and you're out here playing charity." Emily tried to explain, but Brittany cut her off. "You're too soft. People are going to use you and spit you out. He's probably just pretending to be homeless, so girls like you feel sorry for him." Emily didn't argue. She just smiled faintly and said, "If he's lying, that's between him and God. But if he's truly in need, at least I did the right thing." Over the next few days, Emily couldn't shake the image of the young man from her mind. She began packing a little extra food from their modest kitchen and stopped by the same corner where she had first seen him. He was always there, seated in the same quiet posture, his head lowered as if carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. When he saw her approach the second time, his face lit up, not with the excitement of receiving help, but with the warmth of recognition. She handed him a small plastic container filled with rice and beans, and he looked at it like it was the most precious gift in the world. "Ryan," he said after a moment, his voice cracking, "thank you for treating me like I matter." They began to talk during her visits. Emily would sit on a nearby bench while Ryan ate slowly, savoring each bite. He told her that he had lost his parents when he was a child and had grown up in an orphanage. At 18, he was forced to leave with nowhere to go. He had tried to find work, but no one wanted to hire someone without an address, experience, or connections. Over time, his hope had begun to fade. "I don't want pity," he told her one afternoon. "I just want a chance. But most people don't even see me." Emily's heart ached for him. He spoke with such humility and honesty. It was clear he was not someone looking for handouts, but someone simply trying to survive. Back at home, Brittany continued to mock Emily's growing connection with Ryan. "You're feeding a stray," she said sarcastically one night, watching Emily warm up a small meal. "Next thing you know, he'll be living on our couch." But Emily didn't let the words sink in. Something about Ryan had touched her in a way she couldn't explain. He was poor, yes, but there was dignity in the way he carried himself and depth in the way he listened and spoke. He made her feel like she was doing something that mattered, something real. She didn't know where this friendship would lead, but she knew one thing for sure: she couldn't abandon him now. As the days passed, their conversations grew deeper. Ryan began to ask about Emily's life, her dreams, and the burden she carried, trying to balance school and financial pressure. She found herself opening up to him in ways she hadn't with anyone else, not even Brittany. And in return, Ryan told her stories of the streets, the dangers he faced at night, and the little victories that kept him going. It was in those shared stories that a fragile but beautiful bond began to grow. It wasn't about romance. Not yet. It was about two people seeing each other, truly seeing each other for who they were beneath the surface, and that Emily realized was a kind of love all on its own. Tensions in the tiny apartment began to build like a pressure cooker. Brittany was no longer just annoyed by Emily's frequent visits to Ryan. She was livid. One evening, as Emily carefully packed a small meal of pasta into a container, Brittany leaned against the kitchen counter with a smirk. "You know, it's starting to look like you're in love with that street boy." She scoffed. "What's next?" "Emily bringing him to Thanksgiving dinner." Emily didn't reply. She just tightened the lid on the container and kept her eyes on her task. But Brittany wasn't finished. "Look around you," she said sharply. "You're broke. We can't pay rent. We barely have groceries. And instead of fixing your own life, you're out here trying to save some. Nobody. I'm out meeting people who can actually help me. Like Mr. Collins. He may be older, but he's rich. Meanwhile, you're falling for a guy who can't even afford socks." Emily's patience was tested, but she stood her ground. "I don't want to live a lie, Brittany," she said quietly, her voice calm but firm. "You act like money is everything, but I'd rather struggle with dignity than trade my worth for luxury." Brittany rolled her eyes. "Suit yourself, but don't come crying to me when your little charity case stabs you in the back." That night, Emily made her usual trip to see Ryan, but something felt different. The streets were quieter than usual. As she turned the corner where he always sat, her heart stopped. Ryan wasn't there. She searched frantically and found him a few blocks away, lying on the pavement, bruised and bleeding. A group of men had attacked him earlier, trying to steal what little money he had begged for that day. Without thinking, Emily called a cab, helped Ryan into the back seat, and took him straight to a nearby clinic. She stayed by his side as a nurse cleaned his wounds and wrapped his arm in a bandage. The injuries were painful, but not life-threatening. Still, Emily couldn't bear the thought of him returning to the same street that night. As they left the clinic, she made a decision. "You're coming home with me," she said. Ryan tried to protest, insisting he didn't want to cause trouble, but Emily was firm. "Just until you're better. I won't take no for an answer." With Brittany away visiting a friend for a few days, Emily brought Ryan into their small apartment and made up a space for him to sleep in the living room. When Brittany returned and saw Ryan sitting on their worn-down sofa, her reaction was explosive. "What the hell is he doing here?" she screamed. Ryan immediately stood up, ready to leave, but Emily stepped between them. "He was attacked. I couldn't just leave him on the street," she said. Brittany folded her arms and glared. "You're insane. You've brought a homeless stranger into our home. Do you even hear yourself?" Emily remained calm, her eyes pleading. "Please, Brittany, just 1 week. Let him rest heal, and I'll make sure he's gone by then. You know, I would never do anything to put us in danger. He's not a threat. He's just someone who needs a break." Brittany stormed into the kitchen, muttering under her breath, slamming the cabinet doors louder than necessary. Emily followed, trying to appeal to whatever empathy Brittany had left. "I know you think I'm being foolish," she said. "But if you saw the way he looked at me after I helped him, if you heard his story, you might understand. He's not what you think. He's been through things we can't even imagine." Brittany finally turned around, eyes filled with resentment, but also something else doubt. After a long silence, she muttered, "Fine 1 week, but after that he's out, and don't expect me to play house with your little project." That night, Emily sat with Ryan on the floor of the living room, sharing a plate of reheated food and trying to make light of the situation. Ryan, still weak from the attack, thanked her again and again, his voice filled with emotion. "I don't know why you care so much," he said softly. Emily looked at him and smiled. "Because I see you, Ryan, and that matters more to me than anything Brittany or anyone else has to say." In that moment, something unspoken passed between them, something deeper than gratitude or friendship. It was the beginning of trust, fragile but real, formed in the fires of hardship and tested in the silence of a quiet, uncertain night. A few weeks passed, and life inside the tiny apartment settled into a fragile routine. Emily kept working double shifts and attending her classes while Ryan recovered steadily from his injuries. He remained quiet, helpful, and respectful, always doing his best to stay out of Brittany's way. Then one morning, while Emily was waiting in line at the school finance office, preparing herself to beg for another extension on her overdue tuition fees, she heard something she couldn't believe. Emily Carter, the woman behind the desk, called, "You're all set. Your balance has been paid in full." Emily froze. "I'm sorry, what?" The woman smiled and pointed to her computer screen. "Your tuition was covered this morning. Anonymous payment, stunned." Emily walked out of the office in a daze. The only person who knew how desperate she was Ryan. When she got home, she found Ryan quietly folding the sheets on the living room couch. She placed her bag on the table and studied his face carefully. "Ryan," she said slowly, did you pay my school fees?" He looked up confused and then shook his head. "No, Emily, I don't have that kind of money." His voice was calm, sincere, but Emily couldn't ignore the suspicion growing in her heart. "Are you sure? Please be honest with me." Ryan met her eyes. "I promise it wasn't me. I wish I could have helped like that, but I can't even help myself." Though the mystery remained, Emily decided to let it go. Whoever had paid, she was grateful, and she didn't want to ruin the fragile peace she'd found in her little corner of the world. But peace is a delicate thing. Later that evening, the front door swung open with a bang. Brittany was back. She had been away for days, supposedly visiting friends, but it was clear from her flashy new outfit and expensive perfume that she'd spent time with someone far wealthier than a college student could afford. Her eyes immediately landed on Ryan, who was sitting in the corner reading an old book Emily had lent him. "You have got to be kidding me," Brittany snarled. "He's still here." Ryan stood up, his posture tense but calm. Emily stepped in quickly, blocking Brittany's path. "Brittany, we had a deal. 1 week. It's only been 5 days." Brittany crossed her arms, her expression filled with contempt. "That was before I realized you've turned our apartment into a homeless shelter." Emily stood her ground. "Please, just 1 more day. He's looking for work. He just needs a chance." Brittany stormed into her room, slamming the door behind her. The next morning, Emily received an urgent call from her mother. Her younger brother had fallen ill, and her family needed her back home for a few days. She was torn about leaving Ryan alone with Brittany, but he reassured her, "Don't worry about me. Emily, I can handle myself. Go be with your family." Emily hugged him quickly and left her heart heavy. She hoped Brittany would stay civil, but as soon as Emily was gone, Brittany's behavior shifted dramatically. That evening, Ryan was sitting quietly in the living room when Brittany stepped out of her room, now dressed in a tight dress, makeup flawless and hair cascading down her shoulders. She sauntered over and sat beside him, her voice unusually sweet. "You know, Ryan," she purred, "you're not so bad to look at when you're cleaned up." Ryan turned to her slowly, not buying the act. "What are you doing, Brittany?" She smirked. "Oh, come on. Don't act so innocent. Emily's not here. You and I both know she's too simple to ever understand someone like you. But I do. I can help you. I can make you feel alive again." She reached out to touch his arm, but Ryan pulled away immediately. His face darkened. Don't insult Emily like that. She's twice the woman you pretend to be." Brittany laughed bitterly. "You really think she's better than me? She's poor, Ryan. She can't offer you anything." Ryan stood up. "You're wrong. She gave me food when I was starving. She gave me dignity when the world had written me off. And you sell yourself to men like Mr. Collins and call it ambition." Brittany's face twisted in rage, her pride wounded by the rejection. "You'll regret this," she snapped. "I could have given you everything." Ryan shook his head. "You don't even know what everything means." With that, he walked into the bedroom Emily had offered him, closing the door quietly behind him. Brittany was left alone, seething with fury, but Ryan didn't care. For the first time in a long time, he had drawn a clear line and stood on the side of truth. And even if the world didn't applaud, he knew in his heart that he had chosen the right woman, not the glamorous one, not the rich one, but the one who had seen his pain and loved him anyway. The week Emily was away passed slowly, but it changed everything. During her absence, Ryan made a bold decision. Determined to build a stable life, he went out job hunting again, this time with confidence and a quiet hope that things were finally turning around. One afternoon, while walking past a luxurious estate with a help wanted sign by the gate, he asked if they were still hiring. To his surprise, the elderly couple who owned the mansion, Mr. and Mrs. Anderson, welcomed him inside. After a brief conversation, they offered him a job as a night security guard, impressed by his politeness and humble manner. Not only that they allowed him to stay in the guest quarters behind the house, when he explained he was currently staying in a shared apartment and that a friend had been helping him get back on his feet. The Andersons kindly said, "Tell your friend she's welcome to visit or stay." If needed, Ryan couldn't wait to share the news. When Emily returned from her family visit, exhausted but relieved that her younger brother was recovering, she found Ryan waiting with a smile and open arms. He shared the good news with glowing excitement and took her to see the new place. Her eyes widened as they passed through the mansion gates and saw the stunning estate complete with fountains, gardens, and luxury cars. "Ryan, this is where you work now?" she asked in disbelief. "Yes," he said, proud. "And this is where you'll stay too, if you want. Mr. and Mrs. Anderson said you're welcome here." Emily felt overwhelmed. She wasn't used to kindness from strangers, especially not from people with wealth. That night, she cooked a simple thank you dinner and brought it to the Andersons. They were touched by her gesture, especially Mrs. Anderson, who kept studying Emily with thoughtful eyes. Over dessert, Mr. Anderson leaned forward and said, "Emily, may we ask you something?" She nodded cautiously. "We have a son. He lives abroad, running our family business. He's brilliant, but he's struggled to find someone genuine, someone who sees beyond money. Ryan told us what you've done for him, the way you stood by him when you had nothing to gain." "Well, it's rare," Mrs. Anderson chimed in. "Would you consider meeting our son? Perhaps even marrying him one day?" Emily smiled warmly, but shook her head. "Thank you, ma'am, sir. That's incredibly kind. But the truth is, I'm already in love with someone. I may not have said it out loud yet, but I know it in my heart." The Andersons nodded, impressed by her honesty. "That's all we needed to know," Mr. Anderson said with a smile. "You're a remarkable young woman." Later that evening, Emily sat with Ryan in the small courtyard behind the house, sipping tea under the soft glow of garden lights. Her heart was full of gratitude, of relief, of something deeper she couldn't name. Ryan looked at her, his expression serious now. "Emily," he said gently, "there's something I need to tell you. Something I've been keeping from you." Emily's heart skipped. "What is it?" Ryan took a deep breath. "I'm not poor. I never was not truly. I'm Mr. and Mrs. Anderson's son. I've been living abroad, managing their companies, but I came back recently and asked them to help me with something personal." Emily sat frozen. "What? What do you mean? You're their son?" Ryan nodded. "Everything I told you about the orphanage, the streets. It was true in part, but I left out the bigger picture I needed to see if it was still possible to find someone who would love me for who I am, not what I have. So I disguised myself, lived as a beggar, tested the waters of real life. And then I met you." Emily's head spun, her emotions tangled. Shock, confusion, betrayal, but also something else. Clarity. "So everything, this entire time, you were pretending." Ryan reached for her hand. "I was searching, and I found you." Tears welled in Emily's eyes, but she didn't pull her hand away. "You lied to me, Ryan," she whispered. "But you also showed me what love means without saying a word." He nodded, ashamed, but sincere. "If I had told you earlier, I wouldn't have known if your kindness was real. But now I know you helped me when I had nothing. That's not something money can buy." Emily was silent for a long moment, processing the revelation. Then she finally looked up and said, "So, when the Andersons offered me their son, they were already offering me you." Ryan smiled, eyes shining. "Yes, but I wanted to earn your heart first." The evening after Ryan revealed his true identity, the sky over the Anderson estate was painted in warm golden hues, as if nature itself was celebrating a new beginning. Emily sat quietly in the garden, still absorbing everything she had learned. Her heart was filled with a mixture of disbelief, relief, and love. Suddenly she heard footsteps approaching. She turned to see Ryan, now dressed in a sleek navy blue suit, holding a small velvet box in his hand. Her breath caught in her throat. "Emily," he began, his voice steady but full of emotion. From the moment you bent down to hand me that crumpled bill on the street, I knew there was something extraordinary about you. You didn't just give money, you gave kindness, dignity. You saw me when no one else did, not as a beggar, but as a human being. That's when I fell in love with you." He knelt down and opened the box, revealing a stunning diamond ring. "Emily Carter, will you marry me?" With tears streaming down her cheeks, she nodded, unable to speak at first. Then came the word that changed both of their lives. Yes. The wedding was nothing short of a fairy tale. Held on the sprawling Anderson estate, the grand ceremony was attended by friends, family, and guests from every chapter of their lives. Emily wore a flowing gown that shimmered in the sunlight, and Ryan stood beside her with pride in his eyes. The same Emily who had once been mocked by her roommate for helping a stranger was now being celebrated for her compassion, strength, and unwavering moral compass. People whispered not about her past struggles, but about her rare spirit. Local journalists even covered the story, calling it a modern-day Cinderella tale. Only this time, Cinderella didn't need rescuing. She had rescued someone else, and in doing so, discovered her own royalty within. As their love blossomed, the shadows of the past didn't entirely disappear. Brittany, the former roommate who had once sneered at Emily's kindness, was now a shell of her former self. Her lifestyle, riddled with dangerous choices and fleeting pleasures, had taken a devastating toll. After a string of hospital visits and a series of ignored symptoms, Brittany was diagnosed with advanced-stage HIV. Her once vibrant presence was now fragile and pale. As her condition worsened, she reached out of all people to Emily. The nurses at the hospital said she had only one consistent request: "Call Emily. Please, I need to see her." When Emily entered the hospital room, she barely recognized the woman lying on the bed. Brittany's eyes were sunken, her cheeks hollow, her energy nearly gone. Yet when she saw Emily, her lips trembled into a weak smile. "You came," she whispered. Emily sat down beside her, gently taking her hand. Brittany's voice cracked with emotion. "I was so wrong. I judged you. I mocked you. And now look at me. I chased money, and it chased me into a grave. I'm sorry, Emily. I'm truly sorry." Emily, eyes misty but voice steady, said softly, "I forgave you a long time ago, Brittany, and I still do." Then she bowed her head and began to pray, her hand holding Brittany's, tightly sending peace into a heart filled with regret. As Brittany's days came to a quiet end, Emily never once spoke ill of her. In fact, she requested that her name be remembered not for her mistakes, but for her final courage to seek redemption. Back at home, Emily and Ryan continued building their life together with grace and gratitude. Their love had been tested by trials, lies, and painful truths, but in the end, it had triumphed because it was real. It had been born not of wealth, not of appearances, but of the kind of character that stands when everything else falls. And as they looked toward the future, they knew their story would forever be a reminder that love, when rooted in truth, never fails. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to support us here at Deep Inside HQ by hitting the like button and subscribing to our channel. Share this video with someone who believes in the power of kindness, redemption, and true love. Leave a comment below and tell us what part of the story moved you the most. We read every single one. And if you want more powerful emotional stories that speak to the soul, make sure to turn on notifications so you never miss an update from Deep Inside HQ. Your support helps us keep telling stories that matter.